For a start, obviously we are a private sector player, so we want to develop power projects in Africa in particular through the typical independent power project scheme. So the first thing that the country needs to have in place is the enabling legislation and regulatory framework to allow the private sector participation, not simply participation, but the regulations and enabling legislation which are actually suitable for well-structured and bankable projects. Now, of course, countries can and have historically opted for various different options. You can go for a well-structured framework that would allow a repeat of projects, like in South Africa, for example, Morocco, or some years back, Egypt, and Egypt, by the way, is trying to go back to the IPP scheme right now. Other countries in Africa, they might have historically and might still do in the future opt for a one-off solution, let's say, just sufficient regulation and legislation to allow one big project to go ahead without doing the wholesale changes to the way they structure the power industry. So that's on in terms of allowing power projects to be developed by private players, of course. On top of that, sometimes an area which might be overlooked at the beginning, but which is of course very important to me because I had the financing side of the project development, is making sure that in terms of that the regulation, the laws and regulations allow the repatriation of capital. Well, in the first place, of course, normally it's easier to get the capital in the country, but then sometimes there are rules and restrictions in terms of repatriation of capital or foreign exchange control mechanisms, which could hamper the viability of projects for international investors, be it the equity sponsor as well as the banks, of course. And sometimes there maybe those issues are not evident up front. Like we had examples, I cannot really be too specific on the project, but we had an example where the legislation seemed to be very good and seemed to have enabled projects in the past, but then we came out with new issues in terms of, again, FX control mechanisms, which were contrary to the way we were structuring the project. So in that case, we helped the local authorities to make those small changes that were required to fully allow the project to go ahead. Right now, we have 5 projects under construction in Africa. So, in fact, sorry, let me correct myself. We have 4 projects under construction and 1 fully operational in Morocco, the Tarfaya wind farm. So, but all of the projects are only in 2 countries for the time being, Morocco and South Africa. So these 2, of course, are very important countries for ourselves, for us, and they will continue to be. So we will continue to develop as much as possible business opportunities in Morocco and South Africa. Then the next phase is to target some, let's say, tier 1 countries where we believe we will see most opportunities coming up in the next few years. And just to name a few, I would say Egypt is a country which is really top of the pecking order, simply because there are opportunities available right now. So we are considering, for example, a bid which should come next month for a large-scale wind farm, and also we are also looking at the feed-in tariff scheme in Egypt again. Other countries range from Ghana in West Africa, where again we've seen IPPs in the past, and we see interest to develop more. Kenya on the opposite side of the continent, where we have been looking at geothermal projects for some time. We hope that maybe later this year there will be the opportunity to finally bid for some of those projects. And then other countries like maybe less immediate opportunities like Mozambique, Tanzania, or other countries neighboring South Africa, possibly with some link into South Africa. It might be Botswana, for example, with projects with a partial offtake into South Africa itself. I mentioned a few countries where we would be interested in. And on top of that, we will be very opportunistic. If we see the right opportunity in any other country, and if we see, of course, that the country can afford the project and the project is sustainable vis-a-vis the local dynamics, then we would go for any other opportunity. In that perspective, of course, it's a huge continent with where we have relatively new to the continent, of course, albeit having been in South Africa and Morocco for many years. Therefore, a conference like this really gives me the opportunity to meet a wide range of stakeholders from many different countries, first of all, but also from different sides of the investment spectrum, let's say. I can see government officers speaking about their countries and the development programs for their own countries, or treasury representatives, representatives of treasury departments, talking about how they want to fund the growth. On the other hand, I meet bankers, for example, some competitors, which is also sometimes important to discuss with. Competitors that can become, of course, partners as well. So it's a wide range of stakeholders, I would say, that in one single place. I was very intrigued to hear from the horse's mouth, let's say, about the Côte d'Ivoire plans for development, again from government offices, so again a very official speech, but with a lot of, let's say, relevant facts and data. You could see that the presentation had been very well structured. Same about Angola, for example, the presentation by the representative of the Treasury Department was equally well prepared and gave a lot more, let's say, color about the country itself. And I also liked a couple of the panels. There was a panel with DFIs, which again, very important, very interesting to me to hear what FMO or COFAS and the likes are thinking about EIB as well, all those DFIs that will continue to be quite central in terms of financing projects in many countries in Africa.